Good morning, everybody. You made it. You woke up. Yes. The hour sprung forward upon us, and you were the ones who were paying attention and still came in. Thank you. Yay for you. You don't have to feel guilty about that, huh? So today is a great day. I know it's raining outside, and I really want to acknowledge and appreciate each and every one of you for going in the downpour of cleansing for this lovely, lovely California land. I'm super grateful for it personally, and just knowing that this is the heavens opening up and giving us the end to our drought. And I know that even with all of the water that we've had so far, we're still technically in a drought. So what does that mean for me? Sometimes there's a drought in my life. Have you ever had those kinds of experiences? You know, like where I'm dry and thinking my positive thoughts. I'm kind of cracky. I'm not absorbing any fruitful water, any fruit of my life. And I need to look at those areas where I'm not paying attention to. And for me, I recognize that when I'm not paying attention, then things start going the way that I haven't planned them, right? Well, that's because I haven't planned them that way. And what we do, we talk about in this organization, we talk about race consciousness. Do you guys know what race consciousness is? So a lot of people think, oh, you're talking about like, oh, what race am I? But it's not that. We're talking about the human race. And when we say consciousness, that's another word that's kind of like, oh, what does that mean? What do you think consciousness means? Ideas? Being aware, being awake. I got a master's degree in consciousness studies. In ministerial school, that's what my master's degree is in. Literally, we're studying what is consciousness. For 3 whole years, I studied what is consciousness. Do I know what it is? No. No, yeah. Actually, what I do know, it's that thing that does know. It's that thing that when I wake up in the morning, I'm aware that I'm alive. It's a thing inside of me that when my thoughts are going by, it's observing them. It's the thing that is always me. And that part of me, I know, never dies. It is always living. Always. Even if my body dies, there's a part of me that is conscious, that is always present. It may be present in one form or another, but it's always present. And that is my connection to the divine. That's whenever I step out. I don't know if you've done this, but sometimes when I'm really off base on things, I have that kind of like aha recognition moment where I step outside of myself. This is what I do. I don't know what other people do, so maybe I'm crazy, but really I kind of like back up and I observe myself and I think to myself, what would God do in this situation? What would God do? Back in the day they had, what would Jesus do? Or there's this whole thing after that, what would love do? But I think, what would God do? If I really conceive of God as the infinite everything, the creator of all, the seen and the unseen, it already knows everything, it's intelligent, right? It is the inventor of intelligence. If I stepped into that space and I were observing me, and then I were pretending as if I were God, what would I do? What would I do? And sometimes when I'm in that desert space, the space of the desert, I remember who I am. That's what I would do. I remember that there is something inside of me that is so special that it wanted to be me. It wanted to be birthed into this world to experience, to feel and sensorize everything. So I could be this unique expression of the divine. Nobody else can be me. Nobody else can be you. It's like God dreamed up the coolest people in the entire world and then created them all, and here we are. Yes. And so whenever I step back into that space, and what do I need to do that? That's where I learned the tools here. The tools to remind me to step back into that space of what would God do. I pray. Whenever I pray, I get back into that spot. When I meditate, I get back into that spot. Sometimes when I sing, I get back into that spot. Or I hear someone singing, or I hear laughter. It's like something shifts me back into that spot where I realize that I am a holy person. And I don't mean that from the ego point of view. I mean that as in, you're a holy person, and I'm a holy person. And each one of us is here on a holy land with a holy experience of life. Every single one of us. So this month we're exploring the global vision. Here at Centers for Spiritual Living, we have an idea for this world. We have an idea for a new world experience. Right now, what we're experiencing is a world where there's greed, a world where there's desperate hunger, a world where there's a disproportionate resources. And there's also a lot of fear and scarcity going on. And we dream of a world that works for everyone. And now, really think about it. If you were, it's really great and easy to blame people who are like the evil guys or the people who are harming or hurting another. Wow, there are people out there. They're out there with machine guns and they're just murdering people. There's people who are part of governments that are systemically causing whole groups of people to starve to death. It's a great tragedy, the things that are going on our planet right now. And how do we change that? Because our theme this month is realizing the power of the mind. Realizing the power of the mind. And when I say the mind, I'm talking about God's mind. Realizing the power of God's mind. Now, God's mind and my mind are one and the same. So if I were God, and I wanted to create a new idea for this world, what would I create? And how would I use my creative abilities to actually create that world? Well, it has to start with a vision. Mary Morrissey says everything is created twice, and that makes sense. At first, there's an idea, right? And then from the idea, something physical is created. First, there's an idea of what this new world is like. And then from that, the energy of the universe pours through each and every one of us. And we create that idea. But we are God's hands and feet on this planet. We are the ones we've been waiting for, right? We are the ones here sent at this time period to create a cultural shift in our reality of what's happening on the planet. And that cultural shift happens with an individual shift. That cultural shift happens when I shift my perspective, when I shift my mind, when I stop buying into the idea that the world is falling apart, and I start buying into the idea that the world is falling together. Maybe all this chaos and destruction and things falling down are happening because we have already stated this vision into the world. Maybe it's all happening right now because we have come here to be that new presence and that new idea. But what happens is we need to step into that new idea within ourselves. Where am I committing violent acts in my mind against another? Where am I not forgiving myself, committing violent acts in my mind against myself? I don't know about you guys, but that's the place where I'm really good at like not being judgmental of other people, but then when it comes to me, I don't know what happens. Like I'm somebody different than everybody else? No. All of a sudden, I'm not good enough. I can't do that. I'm not special. Where did that come from? I don't know. But I do know that for some reason everybody has that. I don't know where that comes from, but I really want to be a new idea of possibility. I want to be that idea of possibility. I want you to be that idea of possibility. In aeronautics, they call attitude as the orientation of an aircraft or spacecraft relative to the direction of travel. The attitude of the spacecraft or the aircraft determines your altitude. And it will also determine whether you will pitch, roll, or yaw. Viktor Frankl's birthday is coming up, March 26th. I am going to tie this together. I'm that good. Wait a second, change in subject. What's going on? Oh, I don't get it. Viktor Frankl, in Man's Search for Meaning, said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human's freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." He had this realization. There was one time when he was walking going towards the concentration camp, and he was walking along, and it was bitterly cold. It was freezing cold outside, and there were guards, and the guards were hitting all the prisoners with the butt of their guns, just like hitting them, like forcing them on. And he was walking with his gentleman friends. Their wives and children had been taken from them. And he was walking towards the concentration camp, and people had sores on their feet, and the elderly were having problems walking, and they were holding on to each other, trying to just make it. It was icy ground, there was snow. It was terrible, terrible conditions. And he was walking along, and his friend whispered in his ear, "Oh, I wish our wives could see us now. I hope they're having a better time than we are." And for a moment, he had looked up, and the sun was just about to rise, and so the sky was kind of pink, and he saw his wife's face. And there was something about his wife's face that all of a sudden warmed his entire heart. He felt the love pour through him, like it channeled directly through him. And he had a realization. He was totally, blissfully happy in that moment. Now, how could he be blissfully happy in spite of all of these circumstances? How could he have bliss? And he realized that there's something nobody can take away from you. And it's love. It's love. And love, when you bring yourself to remember it, changes everything. It shifts everything. It made his situation worthwhile. It made it bearable. And I wonder, if he can do that in that situation, what could we do in our situations? If he can have this attitude of gratitude and appreciation, of feeling and knowing love at a deep level when he's being nudged with rifles, when he's freezing cold, when he's seeing despicable acts of horror, and he can feel love in that moment, what do you think we could do with ourselves in this world? What if we could bring that love to any situation we went into? I'm sure we've all seen some pretty awful things. And maybe we've done some awful things ourselves. But what if you brought that love into the situation? There's a gentleman called Sam Tagenson. Have you guys heard of him? San Jose Sharks fan. 18-year-old in 2014. And the San Jose Sharks took him, and they made his dreams come true, even for one night. Sam Tagenson, he was born with a hypoplastic left heart syndrome. And when he was 6, he picked up a hockey stick, and everybody said he couldn't ride a bike, he couldn't do sports, he couldn't do anything, but he didn't care. No matter what, he was going to play hockey. And despite the doctors, despite everybody around him telling him not to do this thing that he loved to do, he still did it. Even in spite of his terminal situation. He played hockey, and he did the thing that he loved. And 2 years ago, when he turned 18, the Make-A-Wish Foundation had asked him what his greatest wish would be, and he wished he could be a shark. And so the Sharks team decided to adopt him for a day. They gave him a day contract to be a shark. And he was officially recognized as a member of the team. He went to a Sharks game. They had him involved in all the pre-game practice. They gave him his own locker, his own gear, his own things. They gave him everything that he could ever want. And he was the first person ever, besides all of the officially hired hockey players, to run through at the beginning of the game that big Shark's head. I don't know if you've been to a game with a big Shark's head. And they welcomed him as a member of the team, and everybody went wild because this was his greatest wish and his dream. And he was standing there with his dreams. Like, these are the coolest people that he's always admired, and he was able to play next to them. And he was able to participate in their game. If you want to look it up, you should. The video is just, it made me cry every time. I had to watch it like 4 times just because I want to make myself cry like 4 times. But it's really sweet. But you see, he had a condition where he was dying, and everybody around him told him he couldn't do something. He couldn't do the thing that he wanted to do. And he didn't care. He did the thing that he wanted to do because he loved it. And because of him, he's an inspiration to thousands of people who attended that game that day, and even more. Anybody who watches that video is touched by the love that the Sharks gave to him, and touched by the love that he had and he felt in his heart. What could you do in your life to be that love for somebody else? What could you do to uplift somebody else? Viktor Frankl coined the term Sunday neurosis. It's a form of anxiety resulting from the awareness that some people have in the emptiness of their lives once the working week is over. It's like an existential vacuum that happens, a feeling of meaninglessness, and it's characterized by a state of boredom, apathy, emptiness. People feel cynical, they lack direction, and they question most of life's activities. And a lot of people have this condition. And it's really easy for us, I think, in this day and age, to really disconnect from our feelings and our connection from each other, because we have our lovely phones, which I do love my phone, I admit. But it also, I was with my nephew a couple of years ago, and it was like when we were eating dinner, it was like that was the dinner experience. It was like he was having more experience with his phone than he was with the people around him. And I've also been to restaurants with my wife, and we have this rule. We're present with you. We're present. But we'll notice other couples, it's like, they're on a first date, and they're like, are they texting each other across the table? What's going on? But it's really easy to not be connected and not have that community. And I'm not saying that there's not some community built online. There's definitely some great community built online. And it's not a replacement for the community that we get in person. So what kind of community can you create? I think that really what we need is community in our lives. What we really need is community. Because we are all connected. We are all connected. And if I were doing this alone, first of all, number one, I could not have done this alone. There is no way possible. This whole center for spiritual living, this whole place that you come to was created by a whole boatload of people. Some of whom are not here anymore. They're in other communities, they're in other states. You're standing on the shoulders of giants, of people who invested their time, talent, and energy into your success, into your light awakening. There's so many people that believe in who you are that they created this space just for you. And you deserve it too. This is one hot space to be. It's a great place to be. But I think that each and every one of us I want to invite you to think about, what are you in this community? Who are you? How can you create the community of your dreams? Dr. David Bruner, I still call him my senior minister, because I went to Center for Spiritual Living San Jose for 12 years. And he told this story about when he was a kid. His dad and his brother were like wrestling with each other, and they were wrestling, and he really wanted to participate in the wrestling, and he felt really left out. And at the very end of this wrestling thing, he kind of like, he was so sad and everything. And his father, he said, "Why didn't you include me in the wrestling match?" And his father said, "I was going to, but I looked at you and you looked like you did not want to participate." And so he realized it was incumbent on himself to jump in. Because nobody really knows what you want. You're the one who creates what you want. And so it's your opportunity to jump in and to create what you want. You see, as we're creating this global vision, we're also creating this vision of this community. This afternoon, we're going to have a space blessing ceremony. I hope you can all stay. I'd love to have you. But what we're doing is we're co-creating together an idea of, what does community look like? What do you want it to be? What do you dream for it to be? How do you want it to support you? And then we're going to create that together. Because that's what community is. We don't do this alone. You're never alone. We're always here for you. And I want you to know that. I want you to know, whenever you get sad or down, or you're listening to that voice, that you're never alone. There's not only somebody, there is something, that thing itself, the one mind that is here present, always with you, always guiding you. And you can always look to that thing. Look inside. You can look outside. It doesn't matter. It's all there. It's all there. So I want to invite you to think about, what attitude are you choosing in each moment? How can you create community? And what actions can you take to be responsible for your experience? Oh, and there's one last thing. I almost forgot. The One Thing! The One Thing book! I'll do this really quickly, because I know I'm nearing the end of my time here. So The One Thing. This is such a good tip here. Now, he asks this question in this book. This is to help you clarify what you want in community, what you want in your life, what you want in your finances, right? Ask this question: what is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And ask that question of yourself regarding your spiritual life, your physical health, your personal life, your key relationships, your job, your business, and your financial life. What's the one thing? So for your spiritual life, you could ask, what's the one thing I could do to help others in my spiritual community? Or what's the one thing I can do to improve my relationship with God? For your physical health, what's the one thing I can do to relieve my stress? Or you can ask, for your personal life, what's the one thing I can do to find time for myself? And your relationships, what's the one thing I can do to improve my relationship with my spouse or my children? For your job, what's the one thing I can do to improve my skills? In business, what's the one thing I can do to improve customer service? Or your finances, what's the one thing I can do to eliminate my debt? This one clarifying question can align you in all areas of your life. And so in this book, he invites you to consider that one thing And to do them in that order, this is what I love about this book. The first priority is your spiritual life. It's your first priority. Get every day, get that one thing done first before you focus on anything else, whatever it is. So ask that question of yourself. What is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary in relationship to my spiritual life? Those are the actions you can choose to be responsible for your experience, because we're all in this together. And I'm so excited. Let's start our ride. Let's do it. And so it is.